Science recently, between science, history, and archaeology, the international community has proven, 100% proven, over 90% of the Old Testament. Okay? We've found Noah's Ark. We've found the Ark of the Covenant, which, side note to the Ark of the Covenant, is we found it in a cave with a crack above it, right? And the cave sits underneath the hill that it's believed that Christ was crucified on. And we found traces of human blood both in the crack and on the Ark of the Covenant. And the interesting thing is DNA testing shows no paternal DNA in that human blood. Phenomenal, exciting to me. Point I'm making, though, is we found Sodom, we found Gomorrah. We have proven the Old Testament. In an attempt to disprove the Old Testament, we've actually proven it. The reason that's exciting to me is that Noah, to me, is not a biblical character. He's a historical person. He's one of my favorite, not because he's my grandpa, as he is all of y'all's, not because he followed the will of God, not because he prepared for and loved his family, but we're talking a man that lived 100 years of his life in sorrowful agony. And he bore it like a champ. How many here have ever met somebody or known somebody that you found out was terminally ill? Okay? After you found out they were terminally ill, every time you thought about that person or encountered that person, how did it make you feel? You hurt, right? You were sad. You wanted to do something, but yet you couldn't. Side note, how many of us here have talked to people about the need for getting prepared and they've ridiculed us? Right. For 100 years, every person Noah encountered was terminally ill. He went to bed every night knowing that everybody except for his family had a specific date and they were going to die. Every person he told, God's going to destroy the world with flood. You need to get prepared. Mocked him and ridiculed him. And he continued to tell people for his love of his fellow humans. That's why Noah is my favorite historical character, historical person. We're talking about a man that under persecution from his neighbors, knowing every person he came in encounter with was going to die, was obedient to his God, and loved his family. He built a boat, and we found the boat. Ironically enough, what most people don't realize is that Noah lived in an area far from any coastline and lived in a day where a rain shower was an extremely rare occurrence. A storm was unheard of. Yet he built a boat because the earth was going to be covered in water. That's a prepper who loved his family. That is a man that was obedient to God. And it's a man that lived in sorrowful agony every day because he knew everybody was going to die. We all like to think that we're Noah, and we're not, because we've yet to realize just with the natural events that are coming our way, a lot of people are going to die. Does anybody here dispute that? Good. If you pass this information on to anybody and they start to dispute it, let me give you some information to help you with your discussion with them. From January 1st, 2002 to December 31st, 2011, one full decade, less people died worldwide from natural disasters than died in 2012. The first 3 weeks of January of 2013, more people died globally from natural disasters than died in 2012. Y'all can pull this information off the internet yourselves. It's there. Google it, find it, it's there. More importantly, as of March 31st, the end of the first quarter of 2013, more people died worldwide of natural disasters than died from January 1st of 2002 to December 31st of 2012. The earth is changing. If you pay attention to the news that's going on of things that are going on in Russia or Australia or Greece and South America, you see that areas that are never flooding are flooding, areas that are never getting snowed on are getting snowed on, areas that never have earthquakes are getting earthquakes. It's there, it's real, and it's happening. And the reason it's happening is because our magnetic poles have moved 37.6 degrees. And the reason they've moved 37.6 degrees is because right now we are at the end of year 3,646, and we're about to enter year 3,647. And when we enter year 3,647, we will go from zigging to zagging. Now, why is that of such major concern to me? It's very simple. When we go from zig to zag, it's because our wobble moves from the left to the right. The Earth does not spin in a perfect circle. The Earth wobbles, kind of like the Weebles. Weebles wobble and they don't fall down. It's how our Earth rotates. It rotates in that direction as a result of frictional magnetism, because we're spiraling through the universe. So we're creating what's called frictional magnetism. And as we're moving this way, we're creating frictional magnetism one way, and when we get here and we go back this way, it's got to change, because the frictional magnetism is changing because we're moving in a different direction. This happens once every 3,647 years. In order for that to do that, our wobble has to change. In order for our wobble to change, and this is where a lot of people find skepticism with what I'm about to tell you. In order for our wobble to change, the Earth has to stop. It has to stop its spin for 78 hours. In order for the Earth to stop spinning for 78 hours, the sun has to stop spinning for 22 hours. That's what we're in store for. How do we know this? It's very simple. The only other cycle that the Earth goes through that is greater amount of time than the 3,647-year cycle is the 5,460, I can never remember, it's between 60 and 70-year cycle. That cycle is forecasted to take place in 2014. Now, for those of you that don't follow the Greek timelines, the Jewish timelines, the Chinese timelines, the ancient Nordic timelines, or the Maya, the Inca, the Aztec, any of the long-term timelines, let me clue you in on a couple of things. Scientifically, historically, and archaeologically, the international science community has determined that not only did Noah's flood actually in fact take place, but it took place the last time we ended our 5,460 some odd year cycle. The second thing they all agree on is that that was 5,460 some odd years ago. Now, why is this so worrisome? I'll tell you. When you look at every religion, culture, society that existed 3,500 years ago, no matter where they're located in the world, you find they all have three things in common. One, God created the first perfect man. Okay? Second thing they have in common is that about 1,500 years before that, about 2,000 years before that, the earth was covered in flood, and Grandpa Noah saved his family, and we're all here as a result. The third thing they have in common, every one of the religions, the cultures, and the societies back then all have in common is that that cycle happens every 5,400 some odd years, and it's going to happen again. The 3,647-year cycle is going to happen again. They all have this in common. Some call it Armageddon. Personally, I don't believe it's Armageddon. I believe that the world goes through natural disasters all the time, and we all survive, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the end days, and that's when we're going to enter the Great Tribulation, and Christ is going to call us his flock home. It just means that we're going through another cycle. It's survivable, or we wouldn't be here talking, right? Noah survived the flood. Whatever happened 3,646 years ago, which science has proven there's large areas that have no volcanoes that were covered in magma and lava at that point in time because we found the trace elements of it. It's one belief. But we know that whatever happened at that point in time is survivable because we're here. The downside is that for the first time in the history of the world 2 years ago, 51% of the population was proven to live in major metropolitan areas. More than half the population of the world now lives in metropolitan areas. These metropolitan areas were picked and sprouted as major cities, as major cities because of where they were and the type of weather patterns they dealt with. Now our weather patterns have changed. That means that when we go through these cycles, it's the metropolitan areas that are going to be hit, and people are going to suffer. Jerry's telling me I have to wrap it up, so let Let me kind of wrap it up with this. I've thrown a lot of data at y'all tonight, and those of y'all that haven't heard me speak before, it can be a whole lot because I kind of cover some things. Joel Strickland has volunteered to be here tonight to video this. We'll get it up on YouTube by Sunday night?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So Monday, if you want to look back over this, pause the video a couple places, just do a YouTube search for Bob Gaskin, Black Dog Survival School, anything like that, it should pull up. And you can catch this and you can pause it at different points. But here's what it boils down to. It's arrogant of us to think that because we live in the United States of America, we will not see catastrophe and disasters. It's prideful of us to think, and incorrectly so, that our government will be there to support us when we go through these issues. It is our responsibility to take care of ourselves and to prepare for this and plan for this. More importantly, when it happens, we have to have a plan for our family to survive. So if I can leave you with anything tonight, it's this. If you're willing to put your faith and trust and confidence in FEMA, fine. Know that it's going to take them 9 days to get to you. So you need to have a minimum of 9 days worth of food, water, fire, shelter for you and your family. Know that you have loved ones, neighbors, friends that are not going to do this, so try to have a little extra for them. It's the humanitarian thing to do. Okay? If you're going to be so prideful is to look at things and say, you know, I can survive this and I don't need to worry about things, do yourself a favor, write out a letter to everybody that you love and you're close to. Tell them how much you love them and how much they mean to you and send it to them. Because one of these days soon, we're going to get hit with a natural disaster or catastrophe that you're not going to survive because you're not prepared for it. So either prepare for it or don't prepare for it. Your choice. I prepare for the worst and I hope for the best. No matter what happens, I'm okay. In the meantime, I'm also looking ahead. I know historically, scientifically, archaeologically, biblically, we know something's coming, and it's coming soon. 41% of the population of the United States believes that they will see some type of life-changing event, society-changing event in the next 48 months. That's a lot of people to be wrong. You can feel it in the air, you can see it, and we haven't even begun to talk about man's reaction to any of these things. What I look at is not dealing with the society and event and making my way through that. It's not being one of the 6 to 12% that survived the first 180 days and making it through that. When I look at these things coming, I plan to the far extreme. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, you'll be okay. When I look at a society and event, I'm not looking at how am I going to get to day 181. I'm looking at what am I going to do come 181 to move forward, to reestablish electricity, to reestablish water, to reestablish rule of law, to reestablish the school system, to make sure that I leave behind for my children, my grandchildren, a better society than what I had to endure. So I don't know where you are in your levels of prepping. I don't know where you are in your levels of belief, but I can tell you this. If you continue to pay attention to conspiracies, if you continue to pay attention to what the media is screaming about, and if you continue to just not pay attention to anything at all and continue to watch Honey Boo Boo, which I saw once and I felt more dumb after watching it than I did before I saw it. I actually felt my intelligence leaving my brain watching that show. But if that's what you choose, then fine. Sit back, don't look for the warning signs, don't prepare, don't get ready, and enjoy what time you have because it's going to come to an end very soon. If you're concerned about the future and you not only want to survive what's coming, but grow and prosper on the other end, then you need to start paying attention to the warning signs. Because everything we've talked about tonight started in October of last year. We're entering the 3,647th year, and a year later we're going to enter the 5,460 some odd year. It's there and it's coming. So either prepare for it or you don't. But if you are going to prepare for it, prepare for yourself, prepare for your family, prepare for your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors, and make a plan to come out the other side stronger and better than you were going in.